General, thanks for being here. There was some drama there. Sorry to have added to the drama and distracted you for a minute. I was paying enough attention there that I dumped a Dr. Pepper on Senator Cruz, so that's what was distracting us on this side of the dais. I would like to continue talking about the Russians, but in the context of the long-term objectives that Vladimir Putin has to undermine American institutions and the public trust. Obviously, the 2016 election matters a lot, and there are multiple ongoing investigations about that. I'm trying to talk about something slightly different, the longer-term goal that they have. Because anybody who reads intelligence, this isn't through the prism of who you voted for in the 2016 election or what you think happened in the 2016 election, as important as all of that is, anybody who reads intelligence knows that we face a sophisticated, long-term effort by a foreign adversary to undermine our foreign policy and our ability to lead in the world by trying to undermine confidence in American institutions. There's nobody who's reading intelligence right now that doesn't know that Vladimir Putin has that objective. So this shouldn't be this part shouldn't be a Republican versus Democratic issue. Vladimir Putin is an opportunist, which means that any partisan or ideological alignment he has is temporary. He wants to undermine America. And every patriotic American ought to be concerned about that. You listen to certain news outlets, and it sounds like there's a Russian behind everything that's happening in America, and it's laughable. But you listen to other news outlets, and it's seemingly the case that Vladimir Putin is somebody that we should trust, and he has America's best interests at heart, which is more absurd. So I think we know, again, people who are reading intelligence know that Russia's going to be back in 2018. They're going to be back in 2020. And they have goals to undermine American, democratic, Republican, small r, small d institutions, and to undermine our confidence in these institutions and to exacerbate American on American hatred. We live at a time where info ops and propaganda and misinformation are a far more cost-effective way for people to try to weaken the United States of America than by thinking they can outspend us at a military level, though we're underinvesting in a lot of military hardware and long-term planning. So as the nation's chief law enforcement officer and as a supervisor of multiple components of our intelligence community, I'm curious about your views on this issue, and I want to ask you a series of questions. The first is, do you think we're doing enough to prepare for future interference by Russia and other foreign adversaries in the information space?
Probably not. We're not. And the matter is so complex that for most of us, we're not able to fully grasp the technical dangers that are out there. We have commercial penetration by some of our toughest trading partners. We've got disruption and interference, it appears, by Russians officials or people, and it requires a real review.
And so, under your leadership, what concrete steps has the department taken or should the department take to learn the lessons of 2016 for the purposes of fighting against future foreign election interference?
Well, we are looking at a number of things. We're specifically intensely reviewing the commercial interference and theft of trade secrets and important data or information that some private companies have spent decades developing and hundreds of millions of dollars and have it stolen in a moment. And we've got indictments that deal with some of those issues. The National Security Division of the Department of Justice has got some really talented people. The FBI has as good a group of experts on sophisticated computer technology as probably exists in the world. But whether we're at the level we need to be yet, I don't think so.
So let's distinguish between two things there in your answer. The first is, I think you were asked earlier if you have confidence in the January 6th, 2017 intelligence community assessment of Russian attempts to interfere in the 2016 election. I had stepped out for a minute, but you agreed.
I've never denied. I acknowledge that at my confirmation. Yes.
So you have no reason.
I have no reason to deny that or doubt that.
You have confidence in the integrity and the professionalism of the men and women of the intelligence community.
Yes.
There may be an issue, though, about whether or not our pipeline is robust enough. Do we have enough people coming into the National Security Division? If you were arriving at DOJ today as the Attorney General and you were going to focus on NSD for the first 100 days you're there, talk us through a little bit about how you would prioritize in that space? Because my view is that we're investing way too little in the pipeline to be ready for offensive and defensive aspects of cyber writ large, but especially info ops and misinformation campaigns.
Well, the misinformation campaign is something that I'm not sure we're at the bottom of yet, and it needs to continue to be examined. When I was on the Armed Services Committee, I got legislation passed to review our entire Defense Department situation to see how vulnerable we are there. And we have many vulnerabilities in our Defense Department, in our missile systems, perhaps. And then we've got the commercial penetration that we have some cases that are ongoing now that validate that concern quite clearly.
So that's looking chiefly at current hardware and software exposures and retrospectively. But do you think the Department of Justice has a proactive role in looking at hardening our democratic process for foreign interference?
You make a valuable point. If you have any legislation or thoughts on that, I would be glad to hear it. And I'm not sure we have a specific review underway at this point in time. Of course, most of this has to be coordinated with the intelligence community, NSA, CIA, the Director of National Intelligence.
Well, I appreciate your responsiveness to me on a number of other issues, so I will follow up with you in a less public forum about that. I'm nearly at time, and I won't ask for precedent of the 13 minutes and 20 seconds, Mr. Chairman, of the questioning that preceded me. But if I can run over by 30 seconds, I would like to just draw to your attention, General, the fact that we have a number of crimes committed by illegal aliens in Nebraska. Some of these are some of the most heartrending crimes you can imagine. But I want to point out that this isn't just a case of cherry-picking particular isolated bad apples. We know that some of the crimes that we're dealing with committed by illegal aliens in the country are dealing with threats that are posed in particular by transnational organizations like MS-13. And I've got a series of questions I'd like to ask you about that, but because we're at time, I'm instead just going to pivot to, would you commit to coordinating a briefing for my team and me on the financing and payment systems used by some of these transnational criminal gangs?
We would be glad to. Transnational criminal organizations has been given to us by the President as a priority for us in prosecutions, and particularly MS-13, and we're giving great attention to it, and we'll be pleased to discuss it with you.
Thanks, General.